Our story today begins with the fact that two girls decided to braid a boy's hair, and in the background they tell us that when he was little, his mother met a woman and her daughters who lived next door. The girls' names were Shihyun and Shiyun. The boy could spend time with them until dinner, until Nuna came to pick them up after work. Her parents also treated her like a member of the family, even offering to stay for dinner and constantly feeding the children. And the boy was only happy that he could spend so much time with his new friends. Nunu was the mother of these girls, but when he was little, he could only see sweet Nunu in her, so he called her that. The lady kept thanking him for playing with her children and sweetly stroking him on the head. At such moments, he simply did not understand why she was thanking him, but he was pleased to see how Nuna smiled. One day, as always, he played with his sisters until Nuna came to pick them up. Suddenly, a woman runs into the room with terrible screams and calls Sona. She simply hugged the little boy and asked him what to do now. It turns out that his parents were in an accident and did not survive. He did not believe what she said. But when Nuna started crying as if her own parents had died, the main character realized that this was not a joke. At the funeral, the relatives of whom he saw for the first time in his life handed him money, and this made him, now a lonely boy, even more unhappy. And it was then that Nuna saved the boy, saying that he could now live with them and become one family. From that time on, Nuna truly took care of him as if he were her own son, and thanks to her, he was able to grow up to be a happy child. And this was the story of how he and these three girls became a real family after a while. The action moves forward several years and shows a high-rise building at night. The main character slept peacefully all this time, but the lady really wanted to play football. It seemed to him that something strange was happening, and that's why he woke up. And this turns out to be his Nuna, who decided that now is the right time to play football. She only talked about the fact that the main character had gone through a lot, and this game of football was supposed to help him become better. But he didn't understand what the hell she was doing. After which she still notices that the boy woke up. She didn't want to disturb his sleep, but since that's the case, now he'll definitely be able to play football. It turns out that she thought that too many emotions had accumulated in him after the death of his parents, and playing sports is the best opportunity to let his emotions out. The girl was so worried that he would like the game of football, but at the same time he perfectly understood that this sport was very difficult for him. It seemed as if he would soon simply lose consciousness. But still, with the last of his strength, he decides to show his Nuna that he can still play like the real boss of this rocking chair, and begins to play at full strength. Now Nuna had to play seriously, but even so, Sonu was much stronger than her, and soon she would run out of strength. It was just an incredible round of football, because the boy turns out to be playing very well, and Nuna decided to offer to play again. Suddenly, the main character simply wakes up in his bed. Of course, it was a dream because such a situation in life simply could not happen. But he was just worried that his dream about football could somehow affect his condition in real life. But fortunately, everything was fine. Whatever one may say, he still had a dream where he played football with his Nuna. It was too cool to be true. Still, she was a real master of sports, but at the same time, Sonu understood that he would never be able to play football with her. It was all because Nuna still considered him a little child. All he can do is just press his face into the pillow and sob, knowing that he is giving up too soon. He simply throws away all his problems and thinks about what he should do today. He had no lectures and no friends to meet either. When suddenly he notices his sister named Shiun, who has once again fallen asleep on the couch watching Netflix. But no, it turns out that she is not sleeping. But in this state, she cannot last long without sleep. She was surprised that Appa had already woken up, but when she saw the main character's face, she decided to ask why he was so surprised when he saw her. It turns out that she had one request that she wanted to ask the boy, but he immediately gives a negative answer. But she hadn't even said what she wanted yet. The guy didn't care at all, it didn't matter anyway. It turns out that she needed taeokbokki, a strange Korean food. Judging by the face of the main character, he is not going to go anywhere. He was infuriated that she did not lag behind him, after which the main character told her to order delivery, but that place did not work on delivery. She still tried to persuade him because her beloved little sister wanted to eat taeokbokki so badly, but he had his own problems. Still, he has to agree, and now the girl began to hug him and let him buy ice cream on the way back. Of course, he had already agreed to everything if only she would leave him. The main character's problems were now much more serious than buying ice cream. Next, we are shown Sona walking through the city, and on his only day off working as an errand boy for his little sister, and he also cursed this restaurant which was located on the outskirts of the city. Suddenly he caught an incredibly wonderful aroma and tried to find out what it was. The place was found, only Sonu had never seen it, and he wondered what they were selling. He urgently needed to go and buy taeokbokki, but he could easily just look around and walk to different places. Immediately as the main character entered the establishment, he was met by a girl with red hair who was surprised by the new client. It's just that customers rarely come to her. But the boy says that he didn't intend to buy anything here. He just liked the aroma, and so he decided to look around. The girl looked like some kind of fortune teller, and since the boy had already arrived, he could walk around and examine everything here. And the main character seemed to like her. Could this really be the owner of the store? She was simply incredible, and he compared her to his Nuna, but she was much more like this lady named Shihyun Nuna. Everything seemed to him here as if in a fog. Most likely this was due to the huge number of candles that were placed here. It seems that she can also teleport, because she appeared too suddenly and scared the main character, asking if he was really interested in the candles. She talked about how this candle helps to relax and soothe muscles and nerves, but Sonu simply made an excuse by saying that he was just looking at the product. The boy didn't intend to buy anything at all, but simply, he didn't have time to finish the sentence because some strange effect appeared, similar to hypnosis. Everything began to get dark in his eyes. The lady continued to say that this was the best-selling product that was in the store, but he no longer heard at all what she was saying. Suddenly, he finds himself at home and cannot understand what the hell happened. He only remembers how he was going for food, and suddenly found himself here. When suddenly he notices a package in his hand with a candle in it. What the hell? He was going to get food for his sister. How did it end up in his hands? It was already too late to go back for shopping. So what should he do now? The little sister was clearly unhappy because it wasn't even food. The main character didn't even buy the ice cream she asked him for. He only asked her for forgiveness, saying that he really was going to buy what she asked him, but somehow he bought it. His sister didn't believe in his words because they didn't even make sense. In any case, he asked her forgiveness again when suddenly my mother returned home. He just came and greeted the children, touching her neck all the time. Then the main character realized that her shoulders were hurting again. She really acted like an old grandmother, because her back and shoulders hurt just terribly. The boy suggested doing a little warm-up. The girl was embarrassed, but she still agreed. Since he turns out to be so good and kind, my sister also asked to do a warm-up, especially since he didn't buy her food, but he again refused, saying that she didn't have any pain. Nuna complained of terrible pain, so he'll do a warm-up for her next time. But she just tells some strange joke and says that it's better now to really take care of mom. While in the background, the girl runs away and laughs. Nuna thought that something had happened to her, but the main character says that everything is completely fine with her. The boy asked Nuna to sit on the sofa while he thought about the fact that he needed to get rid of this candle, at least for a while, when suddenly he remembers the words of that lady, that the candle helps get rid of muscle pain and restores nerves. While Nuna was thinking that it was very sweet that the boy bought a candle for her, he talks about its calming properties. She just told him thank you for caring so much about her, but for him it was a couple of trifles. All the same, the boy decides to start stretching from the back. After all, her shoulders just hurt terribly, so she needed to do a good stretch. Suddenly, the main character does not calculate his strength, and the girl becomes hurt or ticklish. In any case, the boy asked her forgiveness for this. But in response, she said that everything was fine and asked whether the boy would continue his warm-up. Still, our boy was terribly scared because of such a loud scream. In this case, he will do the warm-up more correctly so that it does not hurt her. But all this was too strange for our boy, especially considering the strange dream in which they played football. But at some point, everything became too strange even for a normal warm-up, because each time he thought more and more about the dream in which they played football. He is trying with all his might to discard these damn thoughts, because now he is helping his Nuna with a bad back. When suddenly he notices that the room has become somewhat foggy, it seems that that candle was to blame for everything again. He remembered that the store he went to today was full of this smoke, and Nuna, meanwhile, thought that the warm-up was terribly painful, and at the same time helped. Having learned that Nuna was in pain from the warm-up, the main character began to worry and look for an excuse for the fact that he was thinking about his own. He was so worried that something might happen to Nuna, but at the same time she just lay there and didn't say a word. It seems that that candle began to work again. Having fully realized the seriousness of the situation, the main character understood that he had to stop warming up, but he just couldn't do it. The damned candle was to blame for everything. She still didn't move, but at the same time she said that everything was fine, let the guy continue his warm-up further. Apparently, Nuna simply pretended that everything was fine so as not to offend the main character, since he no longer sees a problem with what is happening. But he just couldn't concentrate on the damn massage. It was all because the candle had clouded his mind. In such cases, the warm-up moved to a slightly different level. Now the tasks became more difficult, but he was sure that Nuna would like the result, because his back would definitely not hurt. He turns out to be a real master of sports who can definitely help people with muscle pain, but it seems that the candle does its job much better. Like some kind of black magic. The candle affects not only the muscles, but also the nerve cells and consciousness, which is why the boy could not normally think about the situation. He only warned her that the warm-up would be quite difficult, but she couldn't even answer normally. She just mooed like a cow that she agreed. It seems that the main character is specially adjusting the situation to make it easier for him to warm up. Also, this damn candle. It seems that it is really cursed because now the main character begins to behave too strangely, as if he had completely forgotten that she was his Nuna and began to consider her a rival for football. Even if during a regular warm-up the boy understood that her back would start to hurt less, then what would happen if they had a real football match? Suddenly the girl was simply scared from the pain, and now Sonu realizes that he overdid it a little. But all this was too strange because Nuna just sat silently and didn't even talk about the fact that she was in pain. Still, the main character understood perfectly well that Nuna never saw him as a real man and generally considered him a child, but to ignore even when he hurt her during warm-up was too much. Is it really possible that even when he is so obviously trying to hurt her, she will ignore him? Which is why the boy completely forgot about the candle, which completely relaxes the muscles. Now he's already starting to get angry, and all because the lady behaved strangely. She's deliberately trying not to show that she was in pain. But that's okay. Let's see how long she can hide the pain. He explained to her about various techniques during warm-ups, but in fact he was just remembering the most difficult exercises. The damn idiot decided to play a game with her to see who could endure the pain longer during sports. Of course he overdid it, and now she was in terrible pain. Acrobatic movements simply defied logic, and now she was screaming in pain. Whatever it was, she still pretended as if nothing had happened. After which the boy is not going to give up so easily, and therefore asks to change the location a little. It was quite difficult, but she still moved to a new location, from which the main character was simply shocked and only now began to think about what Nuna might think about him. Still, at one moment his nerves simply couldn't stand it, because he didn't understand how Nuna could simply endure such a terrible workout as if she were some kind of man, and asks if she even sees him as a man. There was only silence in response, but in such cases the boy said that she did not need to answer at all. After all, he can easily get all the answers during the warm-up, after which he remembers the exercises much worse than the previous ones. Yes, it turns out that he is a real psycho, or the candle just had such a strange effect on his mind, but he decided not to arrange a training session, but a real torture in which Nuna had to participate. When suddenly the door to the room opens, and the boy is afraid that now the situation could take a completely different turn. It turns out that these are the two daughters of Nuna, who were strangely discussing their brother, and he was surprised that they entered the room. Finally, the realization came to him that he was doing something wrong, and simply began to compete with his Nuna in who could withstand the pain more. It turns out that the lady had already lost consciousness, and the girls smelled a strange smell. It was the smell of exactly the candle that the main character bought. Everything fell into place because Sunwoo realized that he decided to organize a competition precisely because of the smoke that came out of the candle. But this made everything even stranger. What kind of magic candle was this? Although considering that he bought it from a fortune teller, there is nothing to be surprised about. While the girls were discussing something, our boy realized that they were heading to this room, and now he absolutely did not know what to do in this situation. After which the ladies enter the room and are surprised that Sonu is still awake. They were both very surprised that he was still warming up, but he made an excuse saying that Nuna's muscles were too tight and that's why it took a while. They still didn't like the fact that he opened the window because he could get sick. The boy did this to remove the smoke from the candle from the room, but he told them that it just became terribly hot and Nuna needed fresh air. One of the sisters suddenly notices that the mother is already asleep, and the boy and then finds an excuse by saying that he didn't even notice how she fell asleep. Still, Mom wakes up and she is surprised that Sonu can do such a great warm-up, and the second sister complained that he refused to play sports with her. Mom didn't even notice that she managed to fall asleep and asks Sonu if she was snoring. The main character is still a little shocked but says that everything was fine. When suddenly something unexpected happens, she was even shocked that everything was so loosely secured. The daughters just laughed at this situation, but Mom was embarrassed because the children saw her fall asleep. But the main character remembered everything perfectly, and the candle didn't ruin his memory, since he had to quickly put everything away. But he didn't have time to securely secure everything. It's good that Nuna doesn't remember anything. He was just wondering if she really didn't remember anything, or was just pretending so as not to look stupid in front of her daughters, when suddenly she decided to turn to Sun. While he had already said goodbye to his life several times, the girl simply said thank you for helping her with the warm-up. She already felt much better. Still, he is very lucky and an accident just saved his life. His sister asked if he wanted something in the store, but he was not hungry. It seemed to him that Nuna was too tired after such a long day, and that's why she needed to go to the bathroom. She completely agrees with his opinion, and says that she is really grateful for tonight. And finally, a miracle happened. Our boy came to his room and could calmly exhale. Holding a candle in his hands, he tried to understand what the hell had just happened because he was just helping his Nuna do a warm-up. He was completely sure that everything was fine until they started warming up, as if at some point the atmosphere changed. And Nuna behaved too strangely. Her eyes were completely empty. Does this candle really have such magical properties? Nuna actually remembers everything and only pretended to her daughters that everything was fine. And even if you don't pay attention to the candle, the store itself in which he bought it was very strange. Now the boy wants to check again whether it really has magical properties. The next day, Nuna was sitting in front of the scales and worried that she had gained too much weight, when suddenly there was a knock on her door. It turns out that this is the main character. She didn't understand what brought him here at such a late hour, but it turns out that he went to arrange another warm-up session so that her back would not hurt. She only happily agrees to this, but asks the boy to wait a little while she cleans up the room. Considering that the lady fell asleep yesterday after they finished warming up, it would be better to do the exercises on the sofa. She asked him for forgiveness because she didn't expect at all that they would have another warm-up session today, but it doesn't matter to him because today's training will go just as well as yesterday. And as you can see, the candle was already burning, which means that the main character had already begun his plan. And now everything was ready to start warming up, and that candle still had its properties even a few days after use. His plan was to look Nuna once again became empty, after which she will definitely be able to play basketball with him, just like he wanted. He thought for too long in his head, and so the girl asked what he was thinking about for so long. But the boy said that there was nothing special there. But at the same time, he understood perfectly well that like yesterday, he would have a long warm-up. This time the situation was a little different. The boy only asked if Nuna felt how fatigue was gradually leaving her body. Of course, this warm-up helped her a lot. Everything is done precisely in order to ultimately play football, so our boy gradually brought everything to the game. He was already telling her that he would do everything in the best possible way, when suddenly she gradually began to fall asleep. After all, the candle began to work, and now he was even in shock because he himself could not believe that this was quite enough. He called her by name to check her reaction, and everything was exactly the same as last time, the same tired voice, the same empty eyes. In such cases, the final stage of the plan should begin to take effect. The boy wanted to do everything exactly so that afterward they would play football. And once again, the girl finds herself under the influence of that candle. But he's going to make sure of this 100% because he still doesn't have proof that she's under hypnosis. At the moment when the candle is in effect, the brain does not think about what it is told, but simply does what is said. Yes, everything turns out to be exactly as he thought, but it was simply impossible. It meant that everything he would say to his Nuna had to come true. Now she is completely changed and was more like a rival for football, and not his native Nuna. He is now starting to behave strangely, because it has always been difficult for him to find a worthy opponent in football. And now he says that it's time for Nuna to change her sports uniform and go on the field. She behaves like a living zombie who will simply do what she is told. Of course, our boy was simply shocked. Firstly, Nuna just looked great in a football uniform, and secondly, she seemed to be a very strong opponent. Since now everything was too serious, the main character is also not going to just stand on the sidelines, but wants to show a truly worthy match, since he was already fully charged with energy. While he continued to praise how she could play and how she was just an amazing player, the girl just acted like a zombie who didn't even have feelings. Even the boy found it strange because the girl answered only after some time. In such cases, the round begins and the main character decides to start with his strongest attacks that were in his arsenal. Now she was no longer so confident when she played against the boy because she could barely keep up with him in speed. That's how, in a few frames, the main character turned from an ordinary and sweet guy who loves his family into an abnormal psycho who plays football with his Nuna. Or it was all that candle's fault. He was going to do everything possible to ensure that Nuna's back never hurt again, and the best way to do this was to simply play the best sports tournament in history. And she seemed to no longer really like this idea. While the boy was trying his best to defeat this woman, she no longer understood what to do against such a football monster as Sonu. Since everything happened like this, now he says that she should try much better than before, all because the game was very important to him. He tried to make sure that she liked the game of football too, which is why he tried so hard. And while he continued to do various techniques that he only knew, Nuna no longer understood what to do. She was not able to take the ball, much less win. Only because of the action of that candle, she could not do anything about it. Our boy thought that he was doing everything absolutely correctly, but Nuna's look spoke of something completely different. No emotions were visible in her eyes at all. But the boy was really completely glad that his brilliant plan had worked, and now Nuna's fatigue should have completely disappeared. After which he says that it was really too difficult for him to achieve such mastery, and now he wanted to show how he became a master of sports. His look was serious as never before, and since she didn't know how to play football at all, now he decides to change the game. Volleyball is an excellent sport so that a girl can learn to play quickly. Yes, here indeed she did everything much better than before. The main character told her about how to correctly make various blows, and the girl repeated after him. And then it turns out that he decided to start the round without warning her about it. Nuna received a sports injury and he asked for forgiveness for his action. But since they had already started playing volleyball, there was no point in stopping, after which the game moves to a completely different level. It was as if she was a born volleyball player. In such cases, our boy is not going to give in and plays at full strength. But Nuna was not inferior to him. It was the most epic game I have ever seen. And in the next chapter, we are shown Nuna, who was sitting at her work, but it was too difficult for her. When suddenly the little protagonist returned home, she was surprised that he came so early and asked for his help. It turns out that some file was not downloading for her, and the guy thought that she just had some kind of virus on her laptop, but still he had some idea on how to solve the problem. After which some strange video with cats opened there, the main character realized that he had clicked on the wrong link and hurried to close all the windows. In an instant, the laptop screen was closed, as if Flash himself had decided to take on the job. Still, he said that there was a virus and it would be better to take this laptop to a service center, and she simply asked for forgiveness for the fact that he would have to go out in such hot weather. Before leaving, she was going to offer him a refreshing drink, but the girl was too clumsy and simply overturned the glass. While the lady was worried and cleared everything from the table, the main character was worried that something was wrong with Nuna. She continued to say that she was too clumsy all day, but the boy strangely watched her as she cleaned up. He is just going to get away from here as quickly as possible, but Nuna asks him to drink water before heading out into the heat. It was from that day that the main character thought about playing football with Nuna. After which the actions are transferred to the moment when the boy had a birthday. Everyone was sitting at the table and congratulating him. He felt awkward because they had thrown a party for him, but they just laughed because he had such a scared face. Nuna simply hugged him and said that she would be very upset if she did not arrange such a holiday for him. She said that she loved him very much, as if she were her own son. This was important for the boy because he had no parents. But he couldn't just accept all this, saying that she shouldn't have hugged him so much because he was no longer a child, but she still continued to laugh, saying that her Sonu was already an adult. For Sunwoo at that age, it was very strange to perceive everything that was happening as normal, because he was a damn teenager. One evening, the main character said that he would go with his friends for drinks, and in the meantime, she wrote a note in which she said thank you for always taking care of her daughters, and also that he grew up to be just a great guy. And now she could only sit and think about how nothing would happen to him, otherwise he might drink too many drinks. The fears turn out to be not in vain, because the main character returned just like that. He had drunk too many drinks, so he just wanted to drink water and go to the bathroom. Just as he wanted to go into the apartment to do his business, he suddenly saw that someone was sleeping on the sofa in the living room. It turns out that it was his Nuna who fell asleep while she was waiting for him. It was very strange because he said that he would return late. Now he cursed himself because Nuna was worried about him. While she was sleeping on the sofa, she even managed to freeze. The main character, like a real man, couldn't just watch the girl sleep in such conditions, so he decided to take her back to his room. At such moments, he tried to understand which of them was truly an adult. This whole situation was too strange because the girl hugged him and started smiling in her sleep. While he was thinking about the fact that he needed to move her to her place as soon as possible, he completely did not notice the note that she wrote for him. And now the actions are transferred to the present time, and the main character, more precisely, was not the nice guy he was before. Now he considered her his rival in volleyball, as they say. If a girl hits back, then she is no longer a girl, but a sparring partner. He asked the lady for forgiveness because he perfectly understood that he should not play volleyball with her at all. She was just the only one with whom he could play like that. It was at that moment when he was playing volleyball with this lady that he felt truly alive. If you think about it correctly, now he is truly happy because he is playing his favorite game with a beautiful girl, which means that the candle really turned out to be working. The way the girl played was simply incredible, but he still tried to give it his all. And while their game continued, the main character tried to figure out how else he could carry out the attack. He remembered very well that she constantly considered him a child, but the girl denied everything after he called her a liar. The girl shouted that she was not lying to him. So far, the boy was not at all going to believe in the words of this lady. And since she considers him a child, he is going to prove that he is a real man, and now the game becomes even more difficult. And while Nuna somehow repels his blows, our video is coming to an end. Thanks for watching, subscribe to the channel and like so that the new part will be released as soon as possible.